What's up, guys? This is Alan from OC Nerf, and today we're going to be taking a look at a very particular piece. This. What is this? Well, it is a new Katana mag adapter that focuses on being able to be a forward aligned magazine adapter that also has a flared magwell, a trigger guard, as you can see here, that is also an extended magazine release. Plus, it is still detachable. It's a 3D printed part that I was able to pick up off of Etsy from Ezekiel. I'll make sure to put his link in the description box below so you can check out more of the stuff that he sells. And I'm going to be taking a look at this with you guys. So without talking about it any further, let's go to the table and take a look at this piece. So let's take a closer look at these two magazine adapters. So this one on the right is the original Jet Blaster Katana magazine adapter. The one on the right is the Ezekiel 3D printed magazine adapter. There's some obvious differences, namely this one right here, the tail, and the missing larger magazine release. And what that is the magazine release here is integrated into a trigger guard so that you can kind of just push this down with your finger, as I'll show you when it's installed in the blaster, as a magazine release rather than this one. Now, the magazine release on the Zeus 2 also comes with a longer magazine release that is already standard to it, so you will have to replace that with a shorter magazine release shown here, also a 3D printed part that replaces that. So unlike this one, you will have to open up your shell to install that piece inside of it, replacing the original one that comes with the Zeus 2. What that does is it allows this piece right here to still lock the adapter in place. Let me put it down here. It allows it to still lock into place, but it won't actually interfere with the mechanism of the release. So you'd actually have to take this down and then pull this back in order to release the magazine adapter itself. But you'd still be able to use this with standard magazines. The release would be just a little bit different. So this is more or less somewhat permanent, but not really. You can still take it out just like this adapter here. The other difference is this larger bowed out piece on the bottom, which serves a couple of purposes. Number one is that it features a bit of a nice shell integration that extends the look of the magazine area on the Zeus 2, but also kind of continues those lines, but also serves as a flared magazine well, which is a really nice feature when you're thinking about loading magazines efficiently and quickly. This does not have that. I made that complaint, or rather that comment, not necessarily a complaint, when I reviewed the Katana magazines, which you can check out in a previous video. The other thing that is a difference that you won't necessarily notice until you put the magazine in is that this one has a more forward magazine placement rather than the more centered one of the Katana. So if you look here, there's actually about a 3mm difference between where the magazine, where the darts actually sit in the magazine. There's a 3mm difference where this one is more forward than the one provided by Jet Blaster, which means that this is going to be even more universally compatible. We already know that a more forward magazine, and if you have my other favorite style of magazine, the Worker Hex Mag, the Worker Hex Mag works with the Alpha kit, and it is a little bit more forward than the Katana, but it does work with it. Sorry, it's got this backwards. So we already know that this works, and we also know that the Worker magazine works with other kits as well, like the Artifact and Hunter kit. So this means, as I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit more universally acceptable. So now you've got a magazine adapter that takes the smaller Katana mags, which is really an amazing thing, and now is a little bit more accessible to different kind of blasters. Probably even the Prophecy kit, which I don't have, but if somebody has one and would like to test one, that would be great. And eventually maybe I'll get one someday, depends on how well things are going financially for this hobby for me. The parts themselves are printed pretty nicely. You can tell which sides were printed down on the glass, and the others are kind of nicely rounded. So it's got very nice ergonomics to it. The inside of this looks like it was sanded down before shipping. Some of it is a little bit rough still. I did a little bit more cleaning up on the interior. The exterior is pretty nice. It's really well designed, really well built. The edges are a bit sharp here, but these are the edges that are going to go sit flush with the shell, so I don't mind that too much. Overall build quality feels pretty good. The spring is really springy, which is really nice, which means it'll kind of stay up there longer. There is a bolt in here to retain all the actuation of the spring, so you can kind of see inside, hopefully, maybe, that you can see that moving. All of this comes pre-installed, you don't have to do anything. The seller has already put all that stuff into place, so has already bolted that in for you. It's just these two pieces that come together in a nice box packaged with a lot of bubble wrap, so there was no damage done to my part. Let's go ahead and cut to grabbing the Exus 2 shell and putting this inside of it. Now, my particular Exus 2 shell has a lot of other stuff on it, which there's going to be a few more things added to it, so we're just going to have to take things off and get in there. Some of the things that you may have not yet seen on this channel, but if you're a follower of mine on Facebook and probably soon to be Instagram and whatnot, I haven't set that up completely, but you'll note that there's a few things that you may not have seen, like this Omni barrel. I had talked about it in my review of the Omni kit, that the only useful thing really is that the Omni barrel can seat 17/32 brass, and that's exactly what I did. So now we've got a longer brass barrel plus a ported barrel sleeve on top of that. A lot of other things, I won't get into detail that's completely peripheral to today's review. But if you want to know more about that, if you want to see more pictures, check out my Facebook, and be sure to check the subscribe button and the bell notification so you can kind of get all the future updates. You'll also notice a metal trigger from Orange Modworks. I really like it. It's a really good zinc alloy trigger, and of course more stuff coming, as I mentioned. But let's go ahead and take stuff apart and crack into it. Okay, the part to replace is these two pieces here. Don't lose the spring, because you will still need it. And what you're going to go ahead and do is put the spring back into there. And oh, that spring always pops out. But yeah, oh jeez. Always be mindful of that spring. I always have a tough time with getting that to stay in its place. I mentioned this before, I really wish they put a nub there so that you can rest this spring and it would kind of hold it into place a little bit better. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna fix that problem right now. Just put a little bit of a screw there, and now it's got that retention. So now we don't need any of these three pieces here, the metal dowel or the two parts of the release. So ideally this is going to sit right here like this. It's going to push its way in and lock into place, and now we've got that locked in, and this is going to be the release. So let's take that out now that we know it kind of all fits in nicely. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is, while I've got this open, I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a cleanup and maintenance inside, if you don't mind. Everything's back together. I finished my maintenance on the blaster, which I've been meaning to do. I always do maintenance on the barrel, but I hardly get any time to do maintenance on the internals until I take everything off. One thing to note is that the way this is structured with all the things that I have on it, I only really use about 6 screws. I took off more screws even when I took it apart this time, but I only use about 6 screws throughout the entire blaster to hold it all into place. There's no screws up in the railing. It's only held in by the accessories there. There's one in the back, 2 here, 1 in the front, and 2 in the handle. That's about it. So that has all been installed, you can see now that there's just barely this little nub that you have to pull back in order to release. So for example, let's prime this back here. If I were to take one of these worker magazines, it still fits in just fine, and I'd have to pull it out. Retains it, and I just have to pull that out. Similarly here with the, you can actually still use the original adapter if you actually like this piece, which makes it a rather expensive part to replace that. But you can still take that out if you so choose to. But of course what we're focusing on today is this 3D printed part here. So this, you can hear that 3D printed scratching, which is typical. It's not doing anything, it's just the 3D print. That's just how it is. So you just slip it in, it fits in just fine, locks into place, and it is a nice flush fit around the base of magazine well of the original Zeus 2. And now it gives us this extended magazine release with a flared mag well and also this nice trigger guard that also doubles as a magazine release. Pretty nifty. To note, this only fits on the Zeus 2 shell. It will not work with any other kind of Nerf blaster. You may find one that works, but it's not intended for it. It definitely doesn't fit a Longshot. It wouldn't fit a Retaliator. It wouldn't fit an Alpha Trooper. It's really only designed specific to the Zeus 2 shell. If you're using it for an Zeus 2, make sure you get the correct one. If you're using it for the Prophecy, make sure you get the correct one of that. I chose mine in black. You can actually choose from a variety of different colors, and you can choose a different color for that and that and that. So you can choose what color the pieces are. There's Elite Blue, there's the orange, there's the black, there's the white, I believe, and some Sonic colored pieces that you can use as well as a clear. So I chose the black to kind of give it all a nice fit. But it still kind of fits in really nicely. One of the cool things about the flared magwell is, let's say I'm coming in from this angle, it corrects it no matter which way I'm going, right? Unless I completely miss, even if I'm going this way. The flared magwell, as its job, is to guide the magazine in correctly. No matter which angle I'm really coming in from, it guides the magazine right on spot, so it's very easy for reloading. It's also still a nice fit that it is a drop, so the magazine just falls out very easily, so you can just fit it in there and release. So it's still very loose enough that the magazine will release, but it's also strong enough to retain it. So overall, this is actually a pretty nice, nifty piece. Let's take a look at the other side so we can kind of see the dart feed. As we're looking in here, yes, it's slightly better. You can kind of see where that dart tooth is, or sorry, that dart guide is. Now in the Omega, they've actually fixed this. I'll talk about that in another video perhaps, but you can see the tip of it there, and you'll see the magazine being inserted now. And as you can see here, there's still about 40% or more of where the dart is being caught by that dart guide, so there's no issues with using this magazine, and of course it loads and chambers just fine. Let's do a quick shooting demonstration. This has 5 worker darts in a Katana magazine. We'll go ahead and load it up and take a shot. That was it. The magazine also drops out easily for quick reload, and then you're ready to go again. Alright guys, final thoughts on this piece. I really like it. I'm not quite yet used to using my index finger here. I'm used to using the pull from my thumb, so I'm going to have to get used to that. But I do like the fact that I've got a trigger guard here. I do like the fact that I've got a flared magazine well, which makes reloading so much easier, so much more accurate by being able to do it very quickly and efficiently. The 3D printing quality is really great. The inside could use a little bit of work, as I've mentioned before, but otherwise it's a really solid piece. I would highly recommend using this, especially if you're heavily into using this shell, the Zeus 2 shell. Because of the way it's forward aligned, You don't even have to use the Alpha Kit in here. You can use any other reach system that you want. It's going to be a little bit more adaptable for you. That being said, what do you guys think about this part? Let me know in the comments section below. Would you run it like this? Would you run it with the original Katana adapter? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any further questions about this part or anything else in particular that you've seen in this video, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to discuss it with you guys, and I always appreciate a good conversation. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're always on top of the new content that I'll be releasing on this channel. And until next time, guys, Nerf on.